I consider Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to be the leader of the Democratic Party. She's entitled to her opinion. I'm entitled to mine. As I've said about her before, I think she's the reason there are directions on a shampoo bottle. And our plan for dealing
you didn't
with her,
plan that out. We got to hurry.
Our plan for dealing with her is called Operation Let Her Speak. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate an end of this shutdown, come see me.
Take a step back and look at what's really happening in Washington right now. The headlines say government shut down, but the real story isn't about budgets or deadlines. It's about power. Who actually controls the Democratic Party? Senator John Kennedy says this shutdown is the clearest proof, yet that the center of gravity has shifted, and that one voice on the far left now has enough influence to shut the entire government down unless she gets exactly what she wants. Kennedy didn't just criticize the shutdown. He laid out a theory of who's in charge, why Democrats are divided, and why negotiations collapsed at midnight. And if he's right, this fight has a lot less to do with compromise and a lot more to do with ideology.
Well, the shutdown melodrama continues. I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. It smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just further proof that human evolution is a slow process. This shutdown, what you're witnessing now, is just further proof of why it took human beings thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown is bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. Some shutdowns are based on policy. Some shutdowns are based on politics. Some shutdowns are based on a combination of both. This one is pure. It's pure as ivory snow. This shutdown is based on politics. Let me tell you what's going on. I believe in a two-party system, Mr. President. Why? Because two parties create competition. And competition makes all of us better. It does. The Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is competing within itself right now. And there is a distinct wing of the Democratic Party that is winning that competition. If I wanted to use a pejorative expression, I would call it the loon wing of the party, the loon wing of the Democratic Party. Or you might call it the Bolshevik wing of the Democratic Party. I think a more accurate description is to call it the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. I think that's fair. Now, I'm not saying that all of my Democratic friends are socialists. But there is clearly a wing of the Democratic Party that can only be described accurately as the socialist wing of the party. And that party is in ascendancy. That party is in control. Now, my friend Senator Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. And he, of course, has instructed his colleagues to vote to shut down government. And Senator Schumer has been criticized for that, and I understand. I don't agree with him. I think he made a mistake. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the leader of this effort. I don't. I think Senator Schumer, like many of his colleagues, would like to be loved by everybody in the party, and he would like to be loved by the socialist wing of his party. And I do think that's part of what is motivating this shutdown, and that's why I say it's all about politics. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate an end of this shutdown, come see me. Come see me. And I think any fair-minded person has to look right now and say that the two leading members, the quarterback, the two leading members of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, the quarterback is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her substitute is Senator Bernie Sanders. But I think it's the Congresswoman who's calling these shots. Now, Mr. President, I don't hate anybody. I've said that repeatedly, and I mean it. I like all of my colleagues. I look for grace wherever I can find it. When I say my prayers, I do. Every single time, I ask God, don't let me hate, because it's hard sometimes. It's hard up here. But I do. I say, God, don't let me hate. And I certainly don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I want to make that very clear. She has the right to her opinion. She has the right to try to have the socialists take over the Democratic Party. That's the American way. Ironically, I think what she's doing is anti-American, but she has the right as an American to do it, so I don't hate her. But I judge her by her policy. She has her opinion, and I have mine. And I have to judge her candidly by her policy. Here is what the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, has said to the American people and to the United States Congress and the Republicans in Congress. If you Republicans don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion, not million dollars, not billion dollars, $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut government down. Well, of course we said no. I'm not going to vote for that. My mother didn't raise a fool. And as I've said before, if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm never going to vote for that. Now, where do I come up with this figure of $1.5 trillion? Well, the first thing that the socialists and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is asking us to do is to repeal the health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We just passed them. Here it is, Subtitle B, Health in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, we didn't cut Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill. In fact, under our bill, Medicaid is going to increase 2% a year over the next 10 years. Now, what we did by reforming Medicaid, which Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez wants us to reverse, we cut out the waste and the fraud. For example, we found out that there are, no kidding, I'm not just making this up, we found out that there are 2.8 million people on Medicaid who are double dipping in America. They're either signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and Mississippi, double dipping, or they're signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and they're signing up for the Obamacare subsidies. That's called cheating. Our bill would put an end to that, and it would save about $140 billion on 10 years. The socialist wing of the Democratic Party and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez want us to reverse that. The second thing we did in our health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill is to say you've got to stop lying when you apply for Medicaid. Under President Obama, we had virtually no eligibility checks. People could walk in and the Medicaid folks would say, how much do you make a year? And they could say $30,000 a year. And they'd say, okay, you qualify. Now, I trust people. I've said it before on this floor. I play cards with my friends all the time. They're friends. I cut the cards anyway. We have found, for example, just in Louisiana, we did a statistical sample of the people on Medicaid in Louisiana, our auditors found 1,600 people on Medicaid making $100,000 a year or more. That's cheating. So our bill put an end to that. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the socialist wing of the Democratic Party want us to put it back. They want to let people cheat. What else are the socialists asking for in this $1.5 trillion? Well, they're saying we don't want people who can work to work. We put a provision in our bill that the Congresswoman and the socialist wing of her party want us to take out that says, look, if you're between the ages of 19 and 64 and you're able-bodied, we're not talking about a mother with a sick child in her arms, you're able-bodied, you're perfectly healthy, and you don't have any dependent kids at home, then if you qualify based on income, we'll give you Medicaid, but you have to work. You have to work 20 hours a week or go to school 20 hours a week or do community service 20 hours a week. Because the free enterprise system, jobs, have done more to lift people out of poverty than all the social programs put together. That's what's called a work requirement. What's wrong with that? Those who can't work should work. Our welfare programs were meant to be bridges, not parking lots. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and the socialist wing of her party want us to reverse all of that. What else do they want us to do? Well, they're upset at us over the Affordable Care Act. Now, let me tell you what all this is about, the Affordable Care Act. Under Obamacare, if you are a low-income American, you're entitled to Medicaid.
On the Senate floor, Senator John Kennedy didn't mince words. He called the shutdown bone-deep stupid and said this one wasn't rooted in policy disagreements at all. It was pure politics. According to Kennedy, the Democratic Party is no longer unified around its traditional leadership. Instead, it's locked in an internal power struggle, and the faction winning right now is what he openly calls the socialist wing. Kennedy made a key distinction. He said Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer may be the formal leader, but he's not the one driving the shutdown. In Kennedy's view, Schumer wants to keep peace inside his party, especially with its most aggressive ideological faction. And that faction, Kennedy argued, is being led not by a senator, but by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Kennedy pointed to her own words, saying she openly suggested that real negotiations should go through her. To him, that was an admission that she's acting as the quarterback for the left flank of the Democratic Party, with Bernie Sanders as her backup, not the other way around. From there, Kennedy laid out what he says Democrats are demanding in exchange for reopening the government. The total, according to him, comes to roughly $1.5 trillion in new spending. Not millions, not billions, trillions. First, he said Democrats want Republicans to reverse Medicaid reforms passed in the most recent budget bill. Kennedy argued those reforms didn't cut Medicaid, but instead reduced fraud by stopping double-dipping, enforcing income verification, and requiring able-bodied adults without dependents to work, attend school, or perform community service. He framed these programs as temporary bridges, not permanent parking lots. Second, Kennedy accused Democrats of demanding the continuation of expanded Obamacare subsidies. Originally meant for lower-income Americans, those subsidies were temporarily expanded during the pandemic to people with no income cap. Kennedy said the pandemic is over, yet Democrats want taxpayers to continue subsidizing insurance for families making well into six figures. Third, he criticized demands for massive new funding for public broadcasting and the restoration of foreign and social spending Republicans removed through a rescissions package. Kennedy listed examples ranging from foreign aid programs to identity-focused initiatives overseas, which he said Democrats now want restored as a condition for reopening the government. Throughout the speech, Kennedy repeatedly said he doesn't hate anyone, including Ocasio-Cortez. But he made clear that policy judgments matter, and in his view, these demands amount to reckless spending using a shutdown as leverage. He ended with a simple ask: reopen the government with a clean, short-term funding extension and keep negotiating. No new conditions. No new spending demands. Just 6 weeks to finish the job. And that, Kennedy argued, is the real standoff. Not Republicans refusing to govern, but Democrats refusing to reopen the government unless the far-left wing gets everything it wants. If you want more clear, no-spin breakdowns of what's actually happening in Washington, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay right here with Stateline.